We're very far from meeting climate targets and projected emissions reductions that we need to avoid catastrophic climate change. We need emissions reductions of roughly a third less than business as usual by 2030 to get anywhere close to a scenario where that happens. So we're pretty far off. That's the bad news. The good news is, if you look at growth over the last year, our global growth rate was about 3%, and yet emissions didn't rise, which shows that it is possible to decouple our growth objectives and development objectives from greenhouse gas emissions. We just aren't doing it fast enough. What is a major stumbling block is that low carbon growth will look dramatically different than our historic development pathway, and we have to come to terms with that. That creates knowledge gaps. We haven't come to terms with the dramatic drop in solar photovoltaic prices over the last even 5 years. We haven't come to terms with how different our cities and land use will have to look in the coming decades to achieve those targets. The challenge isn't that it isn't compatible with our other objectives. It's getting our head around how different that looks to meet these targets. We've known for a long time, and economists have shown us for a long time, that pricing carbon in the economy is a really efficient way of reducing emissions in a way that's compatible with our development goals. And we've focused on a global objective, which is still really important. One of the innovations we've seen over the last decade is now there are about 40 countries that either have a carbon price or are planning on implementing one, which shows that even at a national level, carbon pricing is compatible with growth and development. And that innovation really commends countries to take this on an individual basis, and that we've further found that this makes fiscal sense and can help countries reach other objectives, like other public policy objectives. I consider myself a cynical optimist about where we are in reaching our climate targets. I'm cynical in seeing that we haven't made the changes and the deep structural changes we need to decarbonize the economy. We're nowhere near the trajectory that we need. On the other hand, if you look at the global market in low carbon goods and services, that market is now about $5.5 trillion and growing. And if you look at whether we have the evidence that it is achievable in the coming decades to meet our climate targets alongside our other ambitions to expand human welfare and grow the economy, the evidence is there. It's just a question of political will. And you see more and more stakeholders in both the business community and politically take this on and be seized of it. So I do believe that it is possible, and I'm optimistic that we have the capacity to achieve it. I'm pessimistic that we're there yet, and I think it's incumbent upon us, particularly in the development community, to prioritize climate-compatible development as part of our overall development agenda and see these two things as linked.